Coming up, the threatened future of free bus passes for the elderly unleashes a torrent of protest. We'll have some of your comments.
A former Midlander suffers a fatal shark attack in Australia. A friend describes what happened.
And the Games for Injured Servicemen kicks off with Prince Harry in the... What would you say if free bus passes for the elderly were to end? Your comments coming up.
Now on ITV, the national and international news is coming up in 30 minutes after the news from your area.
Hello and welcome to ITV News Central. On the programme tonight, a torrent of protest as free bus passes for the elderly come under threat.
A man from Warwickshire killed by a great white shark in Australia.
The prosthetic implant that's being hailed a major medical breakthrough.
And Uncle Harry once again. The Prince takes pole position for a preview of the Invictus Games.
Good evening. Free bus travel for the over 60s has been a right enjoyed by millions in England since 2006. Champions of the scheme say it makes pensioners healthier and happier, but there's doubt over whether the entitlement will exist after the next election.
There's been some pressure from within the coalition to scrap or means test the universal benefit, which is thought to cost £1 billion a year. Thousands have now signed a petition demanding that all parties pledge to keep it. Callum Watkinson reports.
Come on, Pete.
A retired engineering manager, a former publican and an ex-teacher. What these three pensioners have in common is that they go out a lot. And they travel on the free bus passes that all those over 60 in England are currently entitled to.
I use it to go shopping, I use it to go to football matches, I use it to go out for day trips, I use it to take my grandson out. We used to take him over to West Bromwich quite a lot. So usually it's just part of everyday life, gets me out and about and stops me vegetating in the house.
David Cameron has said he's minded to protect the entitlement until the election, but no party has pledged to keep it. People have been queuing up to sign a petition to ask them to, which will be delivered to Downing Street tomorrow. The value of free bus travel varies greatly depending on where in the country pensioners live. Here in the Black Country they would have to pay £540 a year to travel by bus. In Birmingham, the cost of a regional travel card is £612, and pensioners in London stand to lose a benefit of more than £3,000 if the brakes are put on free bus travel for the elderly. A think tank that also advocates scrapping the winter fuel allowance has estimated the public purse could save £1 billion a year by bringing free bus travel for pensioners to a stop. But campaigners say there are significant costs to going in that direction.
The biggest killer of the elderly is loneliness, and anything that spreads that loneliness by taking away the ability to meet people and socialise, it's a false economy.
They're left in their own houses, they're in prison cells, because they'll never get out, they'll never socialise with other people, which is an health problem.
Travel companies say the financial benefits are spread way beyond the bus station, and they want free travel for pensioners to stay.
For every £1 spent by government and local government, it brings in £2.87 in other benefits. That just shows you how important public transport is, not only to the pensioners group, but to our towns and cities and the economies of local people.
There has been some pressure from within the coalition to include scrapping this entitlement in wider benefit reform. But given the power of the so-called grey vote, it would be a brave party indeed that included this in its manifesto next year. Callum Watkinson, ITV News, Walsall.
Certainly a story that's got us talking, and as you can imagine, there's been quite a debate on this on our Facebook page. Here are some of your views. We'll start with Kes Gillespie from Derby, who says that all OAPs should have bus passes as standard and thinks we should look after our elderly.
And Hannah Devine from Wolverhampton says she would pay a higher fare if it meant that pensioners could keep their free pass.
Well, Carl James Collier in Coventry says that passes should be given to the less well-off, and Tina Watts says passes should only be given to those without cars.
Sarah Sutherland in West Bromwich thinks that the restriction, which meant the passes couldn't be used between 3:30 and 6 p.m, should be reintroduced to make commuters' journeys more comfortable.
However, Andrew Webb from Nuneaton wants the free passes scrapped. He thinks that everyone using the bus should pay a fare. And finally, Ada Clark, Warburton, says she has a pass but not a bus to use it on. The debate continues, and thank you to everybody who got in touch.
Other news, a man who originally came from Warwickshire has been killed in a shark attack off a popular surfing beach in Australia. Paul Wilcox, an expat who was in his 50s, was swimming in Byron Bay when a great white shark, similar to this one spotted in the water today, bit his leg. It's believed he suffered a cardiac arrest. His wife Victoria was on the beach when it happened. An onlooker dragged him from the water and carried out CPR, but he couldn't be saved.
The shark was probably maybe 40, 50 feet away, and then I dragged him onto the sand, and we then tried to give him CPR and mouth to mouth.
A 13-year-old boy has been charged with attacking a fellow pupil and a teacher with a knife at a school in Worcestershire. Officers were called to the Chase Technology College in Malvern yesterday morning after a male teacher and a girl, who's also 13, were attacked. They suffered minor injuries. It's been confirmed that the Accident and Emergency Department at Cheltenham General Hospital will remain closed at night to ambulances for the foreseeable future.
The hospital trust blames the lack of suitable qualified casualty doctors. It's a problem that's affected A&E departments in other parts of our region. For example, in 2011, Stafford Hospital closed its A&E at night, saying it was unable to provide a safe service 24 hours a day because of staffing issues.
Well, it's been a year since patients were diverted away from Cheltenham to Gloucester, and campaigners say they're bitterly disappointed that this is not going to change. Ken Goodwin reports.
It's been a year since this accident and emergency unit stopped admitting patients in ambulances at night. They go to Gloucestershire Royal Hospital, just over 8 miles away, adding extra journey time, but, says the Trust, getting more specialist treatment when they arrive. A shortage of casualty doctors means they're unable to properly staff both A&E units at night. After the 12-month trial, at a meeting with councillors today, the Trust says it'll continue. Is this now a permanent fixture?
For now, there isn't a change in the recruitment of doctors nationally. We're still faced with the same challenges, so for now we are going to be carrying on with these arrangements.
That is permanent then?
We just have to see how things go in terms of the years to come.
Cheltenham's MP says he wants to see the town's A&E unit fully retained 24 hours a day.
I would like to know what the long-term plan is. Are they planning to close down A&E at Cheltenham? Are they planning to try and restore it to its full capacity? That's what we'd like to see, but we haven't had a straight answer out of the Trust yet, and I don't think that's acceptable either.
The campaign group REACH, which also wants full emergency cover restored in Cheltenham, is disappointed by today's announcement.
There are big questions about whether A&E can survive when other parts of the hospital have been moved across to Cheltenham, to Gloucester, such as ear, nose and throat and paediatrics.
What worries campaigners is that this is the start of a wind down of hospital services in Cheltenham. But the Hospital Trust says this simply is not so. Ken Goodwin, ITV News, Gloucestershire.
More than 400 people have attended a conference in Staffordshire today to highlight the problem of female genital mutilation. The event was organised by the county's Deputy Police and Crime Commissioner. There was just one report of FGM in Staffordshire 2 years ago, but this year the figure has risen to 12. and more funding has been announced to help tackle the issue. Addressing the conference was a victim of the practice who says she's only recently felt able to talk publicly about her experience.
I just didn't know what the public was going to say. Yes, I wasn't ready to share my story. I wasn't ready to share what happened to me at the age of 7. But I realized sharing my story and talking to especially young girls, I realized it makes an impact on people. People remember and talk to me and remember to call me and ask me questions just because they have another patient or they've seen a young girl who needs help. So I am the living proof, and that's why I chose to tell my story, because it's educating people.
It takes a lot to make me feel physically sick, but I felt drained. I felt amazed that she was able to talk about it in the terms that she does, and utterly determined that we've just got to do something about this, whether it's a big or a small problem, and we've yet to find out.
Badger culling has begun again for a second year in Gloucestershire. The culling is part of a 4-year pilot scheme in an effort to tackle bovine tuberculosis. Opponents say the culling is inhumane and ineffective, and that badgers should be vaccinated instead. They say culling could make the situation worse, with the disease being spread further by badgers moving between sets that have become empty after the cull. However, ministers and farmers insist it is necessary.
We're now pursuing year 2 of this cull, and it's essential that we do this because we know there's no one single option that can tackle this disease. We're pursuing a range of options. We're constantly trying to refine and improve our cattle movement controls. We're trying a vaccination project on the edge of the disease to try and check its spread further north and further east. But we know too that we have to remove infected badgers where they're spreading the disease, and that's why perfecting and moving forward with this cull strategy is so important.
Ofsted's Chief Inspector has been back to one of 5 schools in Birmingham which were placed in special measures after the so-called Trojan horse takeover allegations. Parkview Academy was the subject of the most serious allegations after inspectors found problems with serious leadership, governance and safeguarding. Ofsted's Sir Michael Wilshaw is now part of an inspection team who've revisited the site. They've been talking to pupils and teachers about improvements.
A £100,000 grant has been given to Birmingham City Council to help tackle cowboy travel agents who rip off Muslims making the Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca. It's hoped the council will be able to build on its own success to help other cities with large Muslim populations tackle the problem. Tens of thousands of British Muslims make the pilgrimage to Saudi Arabia every year.
More jobs will be created in the Midlands over the next 2 years compared to anywhere else in the country. That's according to a new survey which asked companies in the region if they expect to increase their workforce. It revealed there's a demand for manufacturing workers in Birmingham, as well as accountancy and sales personnel elsewhere in the region.
You're watching ITV News Central. Still to come on the programme. The prosthetic implant that's been described as a life changer.
Taking to the track before the big Invictus Games. But what's worrying Prince Harry?
And join me in a few minutes' time when I'll have your forecast for the West Midlands. And it's looking good. I'll tell you more later.
Chaos outside school gates is once again a common sight as parents drop off their children. Now pupils at one Midland school are being asked to encourage their parents to think before they park.
Today we've been to one school where parents parking dangerously have been captured on CCTV. Michael Sibbott has more.
A new school year, but an old problem. Congestion outside school as parents drop off and pick up their children has long been an issue outside St Augustine's Catholic Primary School. Parents say the situation has improved since these restrictions began to be regularly enforced by officers and CCTV cars last February, but at times they say it's still unsafe.
With the CCTVs and everything, it still doesn't work.
I mean, I don't trust cameras constantly all over the place, but yeah, if it's going to be deter people, then that's good, blessed for the kids.
It's a nightmare. It's dangerous for the children, not just here, because they are driving actually already from the road, and the people are really driving really fast.
In the